So I'm Phil Harman. I've been in the Unix industry for longer than I care to remember. I had 20 years at Sun Microsystems, and I worked as an OS ambassador, very geeky thing, into scalability, into performance, into storage architectures, into I/O frameworks within the kernel. I have code in the Solaris kernel and in libc. Very interested in multi-threading. Very interested in technologies like SSD and NVRAM, like the DDR drive that's being demonstrated over there. That was a technology we used to have at Sun called PrestoServe, which was battery-backed up memory on an S-Bus card. And it's interesting to see how what goes around comes around. But it's always been an important thing to have non-volatile memory in the host, or as close to the host as possible. Can you all hear me okay at the back there? Because I can't speak at this level for 90 minutes. Is that okay? So I've done quite a lot of work with benchmarking, and I'm interested to talk to the DDR guys later about exactly how they're getting those numbers, because I'm always a skeptic. Even with my best friends, I'm always a skeptic. And I'd like to know how and why, and I hope some of you are a bit like that. High availability matters is a sort of, let's go back to that first slide. It's obviously double meaning there. We're talking about matters pertaining to high availability, but it does matter too. And so what I wanted to say just a little bit about me, which I've done, and move on to talk about highavailability.com. High Availability had the first commercially viable solution for Unix. That's not overstating the case, really. It predated things like Sun Cluster reaching prime time, and certainly Veritas cluster services and so on. The heritage of high availability is very much in Unix and in the data center with Solaris and Oracle initially. Our company has a 15-year track record, and obviously I haven't been there for 15 years, but I've actually known these guys from who are here to dig me out when I get myself into a hole. Is that right, Paul? And Grenville. Grenville's here to zip me up if I say anything commercially dangerous, and Paul will correct me if I say anything technically wrong. And but I've known these guys for longer than 15 years, and we've actually discussed issues of high availability for many years, and they tried to hire me many times in the past, actually. But I was having so much fun at Sun. RSF1 is something that's been constantly evolving. Although it's been a product for 15 years, it's been picking up stuff along the way over the years, adding new functionality and responding to needs, and going much further than just the original Solaris Oracle world. And it has a global installed base. One of the things that I find particularly attractive about it is I think complexity is death. And there's the KISS principle of keep it simple, stupid, with the corollary, which is and think it through. KISS at it. And of course, RSF1 is the plugin for HA for Nexenter, and thank you for that lovely intro. But we're not here this is not a commercial selling thing, and this is, we're here to really tell you what the issues are, why you should care, and hopefully you'll trust us from. These are some of the things that RSF1 has been managing and providing high availability for over the last 15 years, with some very impressive customers around the world, such as the Tokyo Stock Exchange and the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Is that right? We're allowed to say that here. Is the CIA going to be bursting in any minute? But basically all around the world there have been opportunities. I think the simple design, the fact that it just works, that it doesn't try to do more than it should, is what makes RSF1 so successful. What I wanted to then ask was, so what about you? I think General Kitchener would like to know about you. So how many of you are already Nexenter users in production? Oh, right. Cool. So lots of opportunity for us here today. And of those who are not in production yet, how many of you are actually evaluating it and have played with it and stuff? Right. And how many of you would consider yourselves to be NMV, the GUI level users? Okay. And how many would be NMC, command line, and how many would be bash amongst friends? That's good, that's good. We won't talk about other shells because there are no others, I think. And how many of you are currently using the HA plugin today? So I've got one brave gentleman here and another. They're very shy at this stage. And how many of you have used other HA products and familiar with high availability as quite a good number? So we've got some prior knowledge to work with. How many would be using, say, Veritas in systems? Right. You can get help for that. And Sun Cluster, you can get help for that too. And so how many of you would consider yourselves Unix people, or Unix/Linux? I mean, Linux is, okay, Unix, yeah, okay. Good. And Windows? You can get help for that too. Well, that's useful to me because I don't want to just talk from my slides. I'd rather just know who I'm talking to, and I'll just have a quick sip. And we've got another 80 or so minutes of this, so I hope the doors are locked. So what causes downtime? The IEEE did a study, and they told us that they could break it down into different things. So this one here is 5%. Does anyone want to give us a notion of what the 5% might be? Yeah, and I'm sorry, if you come to my sessions, you have to work. So, okay, so we've got a bid for hardware failure. Any others? 5%. Cleaning lady?
Scheduled maintenance.
Scheduled maintenance, right. 5% is actually environmental. It's the one that actually a lot of people think of when they think of disasters. They think of, a flood, a fire, such as the fire in the opening slide that did £25 million worth of damage at Southampton University, for which included the loss of data, research data, that they were unable ever to recover. But people think of environmental as quite a big thing, and none of you did. So is that because we're in an earthquake zone and everyone's just... I can't hear it, I can't hear it. So yes, also I think we'd include in that acts of God and war and terrorism and fire, pestilence, plague, utilities, power going off. That's has been a big issue in the Bay Area. What about, we had hardware failure. Well, that's not 5%, that's about 10%. I live in North Wales in the UK, and these fly just down the road from me. And they usually land safely, but in this case, the front wheel didn't deploy properly. Hardware failure. In this case, I don't think anyone was seriously hurt, which is why we chose this, because it's too early in the morning to stress you. But that's the sort of ballpark, about 10% hardware failure. So 5% environmental, 10% hardware. And then the human factor. Apparently only 15%. according to the IEEE. I did have I had a W picture, but I didn't think I'd walk out of the room safe. Well, maybe I would, I'm amongst friends or not. But dear My Little Pony, I left the company before he did, and it was a company I loved. But yes, human factor, putting the wrong people in charge, lack of training and experience, people not used to the procedures that they have to operate. You know, they've been given a manual, they haven't actually rehearsed something. They are overworked and underpaid sometimes, not in this case, of course. And they maybe type something incorrectly, you know, that famous RM minus RF space something else, where that space really shouldn't have been there, and you soon learned that. And of course there are malicious things. There's the cleaning lady who trips over the power cord, the person that spills water on the laptop during the presentation, all of those sort of human factors, but apparently only 15% according to IEEE. Another factor in downtime is planned downtime. And by that I mean planned downtime for preventative maintenance, cleaning filters, doing installs, upgrades, or in Solaris's case, patching, relocating from one building to another, actually doing the sort of fire drill testing that you should all do for DR, that's all planned downtime. Data migration, you've upgraded your database or you've changed database. And even batch processing and backup, that can take out from your money earning online processing, for example. So all of these things, downtime, 30% is what the IEEE says. And software failure. It's not my business to knock Microsoft, but there's quite a lot of pictures like this available on Flickr, including, of course, the famous one at the Beijing Olympics on the stadium there presented. Yeah, very nice. But yes, yeah, we're all familiar with the blue screen of death, but often software failure is a result of insufficient testing, sometimes misconfiguration. You didn't get your System 5 IPC parameters right, and then more users logged in than you'd configured for. Coding errors, do they happen still? You know, dereferencing null pointers, buffer overflows. My interest is in data racing, data races in data racing? What was that? Take a disk drive on the back of your bike? Is that data racing? I don't know. No, data races in a multi-threaded environment, and classic programming errors, you know, reusing an allocated buffer once it's been freed. And most of the time you're lucky, and then sometime you're not. And you may have a hardware-induced data corruption, but the software should have found it and it didn't, and then it causes some sort of, there's an assumption that if I dereference this pointer, it's a valid pointer, and it wasn't my fault, but maybe I should have checked. All sorts of things, kernel panics, memory leaks, heap fragmentation as a form of memory leak. It's not actually a coding error as such, it's just the access pattern of the software as it hits the heap, causes the heap to bloat and bloat and bloat until you run out of memory. Maybe you run out of swap space.